What is going on, everyone? My name is All Football, and today we'll be previewing the AFC South Division. I've already previewed the AFC North and the AFC East, so make sure you check those out in the description box below when you get a chance. Let's start off with the Indianapolis Colts. They had a very disappointing season last year after they had Super Bowl expectations. However, this team, with Andrew Luck going down, just fell apart. They went downhill very quickly after Andrew Luck was out for the season. But this offense is very intriguing this season. I think they will be the best offense they've had since the Peyton Manning era. They've got T.Y. Hilton. He's a guy that's nearing elite status in the NFL as a wide receiver. He's definitely a Pro Bowler. Dante Moncrief is across from him, a guy that I believe will have a breakout season if he can develop some chemistry with Andrew Luck early on. And Philip Dorsett, a guy they took in the first round last year. If he's your number 3 wide receiver, you're in business. Frank Gore is going to be their starting running back. He's 33 years old this year, so I can't expect a ton from him, especially after he had a pretty bad year last year, you could say. But Josh Ferguson, a guy that went undrafted, they signed them. They would have taken him in the draft, but he didn't get enough intrigue from other teams, so nobody else took him. But I think the Colts got a steal with signing this guy as an undrafted free agent. I believe if he makes a team, which I hope he will, he could serve as a very good backup for Frank Gore. I mean, you look at Thomas Rawls last year; he was undrafted, but you see what he did and how good he was. So I think Ferguson could be a similar type guy, and a guy that Colts fans should be very excited about. And looking at their defense, or before I get into their defense, their offensive line, it's looking like an average offensive line. We'll have to see what Ryan Kelly can do, their first-round pick from this year out of Alabama. I really like Ryan Kelly. I think he's going to make a great center for the Colts. But if he can do well his rookie season, then I think this offensive line will look pretty decent going into the season. Looking at their defense, I'm looking at their defense. It just does not seem great to me. 2 of their best players in their defense are Trent Cole and Robert Mathis, who are 34 years old and 35 years old respectively. So that could cause some problems. They're continuing to age. We don't know when they're going to fall off a cliff or how many years they have left in them. So the Colts really need to take action on this defense now, because the rest of their defense outside of those 2 guys isn't that great. One of the only guys that I could really get excited about in this defense is Vontae Davis. I believe he's a top 10 cornerback, goes under the radar. He doesn't talk as much as these guys like Richard Sherman, Patrick Peterson, Josh Norman. He doesn't have any Twitter beef, anything like that. But even though you don't hear him as much, hear his mouth, hear him running his mouth, this guy is definitely a top 10 cornerback, and somebody the Colts should be very happy to have, because we don't know what their defense would be without him at this point. I have the Colts going 10-6. That could be a bit unappealing to Colts fans, but after what they went through last year, I think 10-6 to bounce back to that record will be a very good thing and a step in the right direction. Looking at the next team in my preview, the Houston Texans, they won the division last year at 9-7, but they made a big splash in free agency this year by signing Brock Osweiler from the Denver Broncos. I believe I'm not a big fan of Brock Osweiler, to be honest. I watched him a good amount in Denver last season. Didn't like what I saw. We'll have to see what he has learned from Peyton Manning and what he has been, how great he has developed over the past few seasons as a backup to one of the all-time greats. But I'm just not sold on this guy. I mean, he's not somebody I'd want to rely on and have as my franchise quarterback already after he hasn't even played half a season to date. But another guy they signed in free agency I'm a lot more excited about is Lamar Miller. He is a top 5 running back in my opinion. He will have a breakout season. He's only 25 years old. So Texans fans should feel very excited about him going into this season, especially running behind an offensive line that is very underrated. I think this offensive line will be very potent. You've got Nick Martin, who they drafted this year. He's a brother of Dallas Cowboys guard Zach Martin. So if Nick Martin can step up and be anywhere near as good as his brother Zach Martin, I believe this offensive line will continue to grow and be a top 10 offensive line for Lamar Miller to run behind. A guy that a lot of people saw break out last season really shine is DeAndre Hopkins as a wide receiver for them. Nothing really even has to be said about this guy. He just goes up and gets balls, gets anything that's in his even near him. He burned Revis a couple times in his game against New York last season. So this guy's for real. But across him is Will Fuller. They took him in the first round this season. He was actually my number 1 rated wide receiver going into the draft this season. I'm very excited about Will Fuller. I think he should have a good season and be a good NFL wide receiver for the rest of his career. Jalen Strong, a guy they took in the second round a couple of years ago, if not last year, out of Arizona State. Didn't have a great year last year, but he's got a lot of potential and somebody that they should be happy to have as a number 3 wide receiver. And looking at their defense, the more exciting side of the ball for the Houston Texans, their defensive line is amazing. Led by J.J. Watt. Nothing needs to be said about this guy. The only thing I'll have to say about Watt is the injury concern is a big problem because he said he cannot promise he'll be back for week 1. He told the media that he hasn't missed a game in his career, though, so I expect him to be there for the Texans in week 1, but it's just a matter of whether or not he'll be 100%. And looking at the rest of their defensive line, Whitney Merciless, a guy that is extremely underrated. He goes under the radar because he plays next to a guy like Watt. But don't get it twisted. This guy, Whitney Merciless, is a very good pass rusher. He's only 26 years old, out of the University of Illinois. And the coaches and reports at a training camp say that this guy's only got room to grow. So I'm very excited to see what he can do this year, especially next to a guy like Watt. And across from them is Jadeveon Clowney. Obviously, this guy has been looked at as kind of a big bust. He had huge expectations coming out of the number 1 overall pick out of South Carolina. He could not possibly live up to those expectations. They were saying first ballot Hall of Famer before he was even drafted. So that was a bit ridiculous, but he is slowly starting to come onto the scene as a viable threat and somebody that could be a very decent player in the NFL. He actually had a pretty good year last year, so it's only a matter of where is his ceiling and how good can he be. Another guy I like on this defense is cornerback Jonathan Joseph. He played great last year. Didn't seem like a lot of people noticed that either, mostly because he's an aging veteran. We'll have to see what he can do, but if he can continue to play at the level he played at last year, I'm very excited about this defense. I say there's a top 5 defense with all this talent that they have, and I have the Houston Texans going 10-6. Yes, that is only a 1-game upgrade from last season after all the stuff I just ranted about with the Houston Texans, but looking at their schedule, I think 10-6. I actually had a tough time finding 10 games that they could win because of the tough schedule. They played a lot of tough road games this year. You have to go to Green Bay, which is never easy, to New England, even though Brady will not be playing in that game. So we'll have to see what they can do on the road this year. Looking at my next team that I'm previewing, the Tennessee Titans, they made a terrible decision, extremely stupid decision to hire Mike Mularkey this season. I don't even know if there's one person out there that supports this hire. I know Titans fans certainly don't. So it seems like this front office is kind of looking a little bit inept right now. I've got a lot of questions as to why, to what direction they see this franchise headed in, because Marcus Mariota's looking like a very bright young star, very excited about his future. However, it just seems as if this team is not capable of finishing anything higher than third place in this AFC South this season. I actually have them finishing last. I'll get to that in a second, though. But looking at their offense, he signed Rashard Matthews from the Miami Dolphins in the offseason. I'm pretty excited about him. He played pretty well. However, he is not a guy that you really want as your number 1 wide receiver. They're really going to need a guy like DGB, Dory Green Beckham, to step up. He's a potential beast. I mean, with all the upside this guy has, how much people talk him up, you'd think this guy is a top 5 wide receiver. However, he's a mediocre number 2 wide receiver or number 3 wide receiver. So we'll have to see what he can do with DGB. Delaney Walker, their tight end, a guy you can always rely on. Nothing really needs to be said about him. But great tight end as always. He is getting up there though. Their running back position, I'm scratching my head just looking at this running back position. It's kind of what I was talking about with their front office as to making questionable decisions. DeMarco Murray, this guy's on the tail end of his career. He was pretty terrible last year, so I don't know what they're thinking signing him. Derrick Henry, they drafted in the 2nd round this year. I'm not a big fan of Derrick Henry. I don't think his game is meant for the pro level. Bishop Sankey, their 3rd running back. He was supposed to be a very good running back a couple of years ago when he was taking the draft, but he sucked. They took Jack Conklin in the draft this year. A lot of people were criticized this Conklin pick a good amount, but I don't mind it, to be honest. Getting him in the middle of the 1st round, sure, it's not great value, but they needed an offensive lineman desperately, and I think he was the best offensive lineman on the board at that time, so I don't mind it. Looking at their defense, Jarrell Casey leads the way. He's only 26 years old. This guy's a beast. I feel bad for him because he plays with a bunch of terrible supporting cast members. Brian Orakpo's okay, I guess. He's pretty good, but he's getting up there as well. Jason McCourty, he had a very bad season last year. I liked this guy in the past, but it seemed like he was getting burned play after play last year. I have the Titans finishing 4-12, which I think is actually generous. It really depends on how Mariota performs in his 2nd season, but I'm not seeing a ton of talent on this team. So I think 4-12 is their absolute limit, to be honest. With all you Titans fans out there, I just don't see it. They're finishing in 4th place, I think, for sure this year. Looking at the Jacksonville Jaguars, I don't think there's a team that's been hyped up any more than the Jaguars this year by the media and by their fans. It seems like a lot of people think this team is just going to go from mediocre to a playoff contender in 1 year. That's not how it works, though, unfortunately. Blake Bortles, he played well last year, but he also led the league in interceptions. So people should slow the hype train on Bortles. I was actually a big fan of his coming out of college and think this guy will be a good quarterback one day, but you can't expect him to just lead this Jaguars team to the playoffs. Allen Robinson, Allen Hurns, very good wide receivers, especially Allen Robinson. I think this guy is going to be a top 5 wide receiver, if not already a top 5 wide receiver. So I'm very excited to see what he can do this year. You've got some good running backs. He signed Chris Ivory from the Jets. Chris Ivory is actually a pretty good running back. He's just a bit injury prone. They also have T.J. Yeldon, who had a decent rookie season last year. So having that 1-2 punch will definitely be good for them to have. Looking at their offensive line, it still kind of looks like an absolute garbage fire, though. Luke Joe, that experiment has not worked out at all. I think Joe Cole needs to be kicked off his team immediately. I believe I forget, my mind's blanking as to which pick they used on him, but I know it was top 3. It might have even been the number 1 pick, so I believe it was actually. So Joe Cole kind of sucks. They need offensive line help immediately, especially if they think Bortles is going to break out the way he needs to. They need a better offensive line. Julius Thomas is looking like more of a product of Peyton Manning. He kind of has disappointed. He only played a fraction of the season last year, to be fair, after coming back from injury, but this guy's nothing more than really a red zone ball hawk for you. Looking at their defense, this defense has been very hyped up over the offseason after signing Malik Jackson and Prince Amukamara. Two good players, I'll give them that, but you got to give these guys a little bit of time to gel, and you can't just expect them to light the world on fire right away. 2 guys that will be starting their tenure in the Jacksonville Jaguars, Jalen Ramsey. He was my favorite player in the NFL draft last year. I think he has Hall of Famer potential. That's how good this guy is. But we'll have to see what he can do in this defense. And Dante Fowler Jr., who's getting very good reviews out of training camp. He says they say that Dante Fowler Jr. has been making offensive linemen look silly. But you got to remember this guy is still coming off a torn ACL, so you got to be skeptical about him and what he can do coming off that injury. But overall, I kind of like the Jaguars defense. It's just the Jaguars defense isn't going to be that great this year because you can't make that big of a leap from one year to the next because it was pretty terrible last year. I don't care how many people he signed. It's just going to take time, and that's a simple matter of the fact. But in a few years, who knows? The defense might be top 10. But I still got a lot of questions for their linebackers and safeties. I just don't see the talent there. I have the Jacksonville Jaguars finishing 7-9, which might be disappointing for Jaguars fans to hear, but no team ever makes this jump. I keep on saying that because it's true. I mean, the Jaguars will just not turn into some playoff contender overnight. That's not how it works. But next year, maybe they'll be in contention for the AFC South title. But the Texans and Colts appear to be holding on to the top two spots in the AFC South this year. I've got the Texans winning the division once again, going 10-6. So yeah, there you guys have it. That is my AFC South preview. Like I said, I've got the AFC East and the AFC North preview in the description box below, so make sure to check those out. I will be doing the AFC West preview tomorrow, so make sure you come back to check that out. And thank you all for watching. So this has been Ogden Football. Until next time.